Welcome to today's journey into the world of medieval legend, psychology, and the human mind. We'll explore Parzival by Wolfram von Eschenbach, a 13th century German masterpiece that goes far beyond knights and castles. It's about failure, redemption, compassion, and the search for meaning, topics that neuroscience and psychology show are still central to our lives today. If you've ever wondered why stories of the Holy Grail keep returning in our culture from medieval poetry to modern films, it's because they tap into something deeply wired in the human brain: the quest for transformation. The young fool Parzival begins as a naive boy raised in isolation by his mother, who wanted to protect him from the dangers of knighthood. But human beings are born curious. Neuroscience tells us that curiosity is driven by dopamine, a chemical in the brain that pushes us to explore and learn. So Parzival leaves home, clumsy and ignorant, wearing ridiculous clothes and asking foolish questions. He represents what psychologists call the beginner's mind: innocent, unshaped, but full of potential. At first, he doesn't understand the world of knights and courtly love. He makes mistakes, sometimes comic, sometimes tragic. But that's precisely what makes him human. We all start ignorant. Growth requires error. The first encounter with the Grail, eventually Parzival stumbles into the Grail Castle. Here he witnesses the mysterious Holy Grail, not a cup, but a radiant stone, described as the lapsit exilus. It nourishes the community and heals the wounded king, known as the Fisher King. But there's a catch. Parzival fails to ask the crucial question: what ails you, my lord? Why? Because earlier he had been taught not to speak too much, not to seem foolish. This moment is psychologically profound. Neuroscience shows us that empathy requires curiosity. To notice another's suffering, we must override our fear of looking stupid or weak. Parzival's silence represents the human struggle between social conditioning and authentic compassion. Because he doesn't ask, the Grail Castle vanishes and Parzival is thrust back into the world. This failure becomes the turning point of his life. The long journey of failure: for years, Parzival wanders. He fights battles, meets other knights like Gawain, and even falls into despair. At one point, he feels abandoned by God. Modern psychology would call this a dark night of the solar phase where meaning collapses. Neuroscientists studying resilience know that failure and crisis often trigger new pathways of growth in the brain. Struggle reshapes us. Parzival learns through suffering. He discovers that being a knight is not about ego or victory, but about service, responsibility, and compassion. This is where Wolfram's vision diverges from earlier Arthurian tales. The Grail quest is not about heroic glory, it's about psychological maturity. Return to the Grail at last. Parzival returns to the Grail Castle. This time, he asks the question. He recognizes the king's suffering and shows genuine compassion. The neuroscience of empathy tells us that when we truly attune to others, mirror neurons in our brain fire, creating shared experience. Compassion isn't weakness, it's a deep neurological connection. By asking the question, Parzival heals the Fisher King and proves himself worthy of the Grail. He becomes the new Grail King, not because he's the strongest warrior, but because he has integrated wisdom, humility, and empathy. Meaning for us today, what does this medieval tale teach us in the 21st century? Parzival's journey mirrors the stages of psychological growth. Naivety gives curiosity, failure gives learning, isolation gives empathy, despair gives renewal. Neuroscience confirms that these struggles reshape the brain, wiring us for greater resilience and understanding. The Grail, as Wolfram describes it, is not an object but a symbol of inner transformation. The stone that nourishes is like the inner core of meaning that sustains human life. So the story of Parzival is not just a medieval legend, it's as a psychological map of human growth. We all begin as fools. We all fail. But with compassion and resilience, we can transform failure into wisdom. If you enjoyed this journey into Parzival, psychology, and neuroscience, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more explorations of medieval wisdom and the human mind. The Grail, after all, is not out there, it's within.